Okay, here we have Unit 76, Properties and Manufacturers of Steel. Manufacture and Properties of Steel. A little bit of Liz Dexy, I guess. Okay, the first thing that we're going to talk about, there's three different aspects of steel that are the main aspects of it, and I apologize for the camera cord. First, we're going to talk about the chemical properties of the metal. Well, that's how much of additives that you put in the steel. These are called alloying elements. And the chemical properties, those are the metals attained through addition of various chemical elements. And these chemical elements make it hard or soft or easy to form and so forth. The physical properties, those that are not affected by outside forces such as the color, density, conductivity, or melting temperature. These type of properties, like gold and so forth, give it its color, or copper. The mechanical properties, those that are affected by outside forces such as rolling, forming, drawing, bending, welding, and machining. Those are really important to separate those three different physical properties of metals. Now, to better understand this, we talk about the different aspects of a metal. The first one up here is the brittleness of a metal. Well, if a metal is brittle, that means that it breaks very easy without bending. Something like chalk. In this case, they're showing a guy hammering, looks like a rock or something like that, and breaking apart. It's very brittle material, so it doesn't have a lot of desirable qualities in most cases, and we make stuff brittle, but then we do other additions to it to make it a little bit easier to work with. The next one we have here is ductile materials. Now, ductile materials are materials that can be drawn, or they can be bended or molded into shapes. They'll retain that shape, but they also still retain their tensile strength and so forth. So your wire and so forth that you draw out into long strands, they don't lose tensile strength. You can stretch them out a long ways, and once again, that's a ductile material, easily to bend. Third, we have in C, we have elastic materials, just like an elastic band. Well, they show a diving board, which is a good representation of it. It can bend and it'll retain its shape. It'll go back to its original shape. That's very important for things like springs and so forth, to go back to the original shape after a load or force is placed on them. Over here now, we have D. Down here, this is a hard material. Well, hardness is the ability to resist penetration. We have materials, glass is a very hard material, but it fractures very easily. It's a brittle material. So the resistance to forcible penetration is how we check a metal for its hardness. That's a hardness test. Over here, we have malleable materials, materials that can be rolled out and stretched out under rolling or hammered into shape or pounded or formed like a wheelbarrow barrel that you can form. Gold is a good example of that, where it was hammered into shape, or copper. They made pots and many, many things out of it, and by pounding on it and so forth. So that's a malleable material. Very, very similar in some aspects up to here to ductile materials, but the malleable materials, for the most part, if you tried to stretch them out, they would fracture or break. So keep that in mind. There's a little bit of a difference in here. Over here, they show you tensile strength, the ability to resist being pulled apart. Well, when things are under tension, it elongates or tries to elongate them, and that's pulling things apart. That's tensile.